All righty. Welcome back. We're here for another episode of Two Plane Sports. This one's going to be mainly focused on recruiting. OU had a bunch of guys in for the game of the century, or 50-year anniversary of the game of the century against Nebraska. One of the biggest home games I can think of in recent memory, other than maybe since Ohio State, I think 5 years ago at home, which obviously didn't end well for the Sooners, but this one did. We're going to talk a little bit about Deandre Moore, who announced his commitment date later this month, and give some recruiting updates on Gentry Williams, Cam Dewberry, Raleek Brown, and then Chris McClellan wasn't at OU this weekend, but he visited somewhere else, and maybe a little thoughts and opinions on him. Before we get into it, we just want to say we really appreciate the support. You guys viewing, commenting, liking, and letting us know what you think. We really appreciate everything that you guys do, and we're going to keep the content coming your way, and we just let us know what you think. So I think the most pressing thing to talk about and the biggest development is Deandre Moore, which for anyone that doesn't know, we've talked about him before on this podcast, and you follow any websites, Twitter, anything like that. This has been a Sooners target for a very long time. He was originally out of Las Vegas, and he has since transferred to Los Alamitos with Malachi Nelson and McClellan, now all on the same team. He's the 2023 5-star, number 33 overall, and number 3 wide receiver in the class. 5'11", 190 pounds. So he obviously being transferred into high school. Now, he's got 2 Sooners playing with him, practicing with him, going to school with him in his ear the entire time. And, I think this is definitely playing in the Sooners' favor. We talked about it, I think it's been a few months ago, but when Malachi Nelson pulled the trigger on his commitment, we talked about that it's now going to be a race to fill these scholarship positions or secure their spot. And I think I remember seeing that Deandre Moore didn't originally want to commit until the end of his football season, next spring, next January, somewhere. I mean, a long time in the recruiting world anyway. But he since has come out, said on September 24th, he's committing on CBS HQ, kind of came out of the blue. And I do think this is him securing his spot with the Sooners. What do you think, Jose?
From what you said and what we know so far, it is completely out of the blue. He transferred, and now he is going to commit from today, 5 days from today. Today is the 19th where we're recording this. It would make no sense if it's not Oklahoma. He's playing with, like you said, 2 Oklahoma commits, and especially in his quarterback. No matter what the quarterback does, the quarterback's always the leader, and people look to that guy in the direction of obviously the football team at the moment. But if it's a guy like Deandre and Mackay, you're going to look to him. And if you have the opportunity to continue playing with that kind of guy, if you like playing with that quarterback, why not continue your career with him? And Deandre is a very talented guy. I think whenever we talked about him, we kind of put him in the same class as a Jalil Farouk, where he's very good at catching the ball, and he's got a very big catch radius, but his biggest strength is his ability to make a play after the catch. And at Oklahoma, I think we've seen guys like CD. I think we compared Cody Jackson to CD. So really, it would be more surprising if he doesn't commit to Oklahoma than once the 24th comes around. And once he says the words, "I'm committing to the University of Oklahoma," and he puts the hat on and he, has a t-shirt under his jacket or whatever he does, I'm excited. I hope we can do that, especially after this last offseason we've had for the 2022 class. It's been kind of weak at the wide receiver position so far. So bulking up that 2023 class with the wide receivers like Brandon Ennis, like Mackay, if he just decide to play wide receiver at the college level, it'll be exciting to see. And I mean, it'll be fun to watch once him and his teammates get to take the field as Sooners. It'll be fun to see kind of how that connection translates to the college world. because it's a very different world than high school, even if you play in a top athletic field like California, or even if you're coming from Texas.
Yeah. No, you bring up some good points. And I also think what's part of it, I would think would be bigger player if this wasn't a disaster. But USC, I mean, we could just briefly touch on him. I mean, USC, why would you wait to fire the guy one game into the season? Why wouldn't you fire him when you had your pick of whatever coach you wanted last year and could have, shored up the recruiting side and the coaching side? I don't know. It's playing in the favor of the Sooners. I mean, I'm not upset. I just
100%.
don't understand the whole one game and then can them. At least let them go the rest of the season.
I don't know if you saw what Joel Klatt said. For those who aren't familiar with Joel Klatt, he's a Fox analyst. He's very connected in the college football world. He said he believes it is all due to their TV contract rights. I believe the Pac-12's contract for TV rights is up in 2 years, maybe 3. It's pretty quick. So he suspects that the firing of Clay Helton after week 1 was because they want to make sure that at the end of the season they can bring on a really big personality, really big coach. I think they're going to want someone that's got a name, maybe a guy like I can't think of anyone, but obviously we've all heard Urban Meyer be rumored to leave Jacksonville to go back to the college world and be the Trojans head coach. Honestly, I think that would be their best case scenario if they can do something like that. But that's kind of the situation that the USC is in. They really just have to come back and become a powerhouse in the college football world, because at this point, it's Oregon coming out of the Pac-12 or it's no one for the college football playoffs. And if you're in the Pac-12, you have the best opportunity to be a powerhouse or be a big brand name. And being in LA after the NIL this summer, I mean, why not take as much advantage as possible? You've got a ton of big name brands in your backyard. You've got a ton of big money in your backyard. Let's just go find a coach that can relate to those kind of guys. I mean, you hear stories from when Pete Carroll was there. You had Will Ferrell coming into the locker room, hanging out with the guys. They want to get back to that era of bringing in celebrities, and the celebrities being excited for USC football. So,
Yeah.
they're trying to do what they can. I just don't know. Whoever they hire needs to be a big name or someone that can make connections with the powerhouses of Los Angeles, or they're not. This move isn't going to make any sense.
Yeah, I think the guy who's going to take over for USC, in my opinion, I don't think it'll be Urban Meyer, and I don't think it'll be James Franklin at Penn State. I think Franklin's happy with where he's at, and Penn State's playing well. I think Chris Peterson, coached at Washington but retired, analyst for Fox. He's not under contract anywhere. He's kind of that California looking guy, he could fit that mold, and he's already a Pac-12 guy. So I think that would be my pick on who's gonna be their coach coming up. But I really have no idea. But I mean, going back to it, it's playing in the favor of the Sooners. I don't think USC is a threat like they should be with that turmoil and all that stuff. And by the time Deandre Moore and Malachi and Mackay are all getting close to actually signing, it's going to be so far down the road. The ship has sailed. USC is probably not going to be able to convince anyone to stay. UCLA, I have no worries about, but Deandre Moore is going to get on board with the Sooners, in my opinion. The thing I'm curious of is what's going to happen with Jalen Hale, the wide receiver, I think number two wide out in the 2023 class, out of Texas. He's a Sooner fan. I know he grew up a Sooners fan. He likes OU. Now, assuming that Mackay is going to play wide receiver, you're going to have three 5-stars, with Ennis, Mackay, and now Deandre Moore. Do you take Hale? I think he's too good to not take. And now with Luther Burden not being there, which we can discuss on that in here in just a second, I feel like there's going to be an open scholarship that they might just kick over to the 2023 class and scoop up Hale if he's willing to join such a loaded class. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the loss of Luther Burden at this point is going to benefit the 2023 class. And if not, if Hale doesn't want to come in, I mean, we don't know Hale's personality. I think recruiting entails so much that we as fans don't understand. You gotta, you know, not only be a preference to the player, but be a preference to the family. And if Jordan Hale's family has enough influence on him that he doesn't want to leave or be far away from them, then that could obviously be a big retractor for him. But this is going to benefit the 2020 Luther Burden's the loss of Luther Burden will benefit 2023, I believe, in that extra scholarship position, especially at the wide receiver spot. Because as of now in 2022, I don't believe we have a true wide receiver. We all expect Raleek Brown to be the kind of gadget player, probably play a slot position, but we don't have a true wide receiver commit, if I recall correctly, that will at least be a threat to opposing defenses. Once next year comes around, we probably will not have a true freshman on the field. I think this year we're probably going to see a lot of Mario Williams, but next year we're going to be seeing a lot of Jaden, potentially Jaden Hazelwood, probably Theo Weiss, definitely Marvin Mims, Cody Jackson, Joel Farouk, Mario Williams, like I just mentioned. I mean, he's already getting a lot of playing time now, so it's obviously he's probably going to get a lot of playing time next year. So I don't know. I mean, personally, I don't think Luther Bird made a bad decision. He's got a lot of competition to come up against in the OU wide receiver room. So 2023 has got the best really spot as a wide receiver. And again, really as any offensive player, if you are on the offensive side in the 2023 class, why not be a Sooner? Like, you've got one less competition going into your redshirt freshman year, or potentially true freshman year. And if you are a highly touted recruit, you're more than likely going to get playing time, at least in those tryout games, like we like to call them, and those 3 non-conference games that we will see. You're going to get playing time. If you're good enough, you're definitely going to be a redshirt freshman. And if you're amazing, like a Denzel or like a Marvin Mims, you're going to be a true freshman starter, which is at this point rare for Oklahoma. And just hop on the train. It'll be kind of the offensive recruiting will pretty much rely on the quarterback recruiting. At this point, it seems like or odd years. We'll get odd year quarterbacks. We're going to get odd year powerhouses at wide receiver, tight end, offensive line, what have you. And then even years, we'll probably see more defensive talent. Hopefully we'll hear from Brownlow Dindy soon, but I think that's kind of where Oklahoma is kind of heading to in the next, I guess, really in the future, for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. So we'll move on from Deandre Moore and Luther Burden. I mean, if for anyone that didn't see, Luther Burden announced his top 3, Georgia, Missouri, and now Alabama, which, it is what it is. Maybe he saw that 2023 class. He's like, I don't know about that. And he's just getting out. Whatever. Still got a lot of talent that's coming in. So Gentry Williams, we've talked about him, and it's been like a little bit of a roller coaster with him over the last 6 months. 2022 4-star athlete out of Booker T. Washington High School in Tulsa, homegrown, parents went to OU, OU alum, number 37 overall and number 8 athlete in the country. This is his 3rd visit. He just officially visited the Sooners this past weekend. This is his 3rd visit since April 24th, which has to play in the favor of the Sooners. I mean, 3 times since April, with 3 times in 5 months, it's pretty good. another one that we talked about, Clay Helton, we don't really need to talk about that anymore, but the guy that's been recruiting Gentry Williams, Deandre Williams, is the interim head coach at USC, but I do think he's more of a placeholder than actually playing, or not playing, actually going to be their long-term head coach. So I would think that Gentry might know that and know that most likely he's going to be let go at the end of this, even unless it goes really well for him. I mean, they did win this weekend, but I just don't know. It seemed like the visit went really well. And I just think him being on campus as much as he has, friends with, kids on the team, especially Patrick Fields, him and Pat are really close because they're both from Tulsa. I just feel like, and I said this after the USC visit when he was on that recruiting high, and the time will pass, USC will kind of implode, and OU will show great improvement on defense, which in my opinion they have. I just think the OU is just going to win out in the end, and I'm not changing that feeling at all. And I'm thinking he's probably going to commit next month. What do you think, Jose?
Yeah, so from what I'm hearing and reading and saying, Gentry is leaning more so to OU than he ever has. And that something that you mentioned that I really even didn't think about is Clay Helton's firing and Deandre Williams being promoted to interim head coach is probably a big deal to him. Like being recruited by your position coach is a big deal, and obviously now that his position coach at USC is now the head coach and could potentially be the permanent head coach. Obviously, we don't know what the USC situation is going to be like. That might be a retractor for a lot of kids. They don't want to go into a situation where it's very questionable what's going to be in their future. Oklahoma at this point is very certain. You're going to have Roy Manning. Yeah, I think, Roy Manning as your DB coach. You're going to have Alex Grinch as your DC, and Lincoln will be your head coach. I mean, you've got stability at Oklahoma versus, a lot of questions down in LA. So, and him being from Oklahoma probably helps a lot. Like we mentioned, probably a month ago at this point, we're getting into the high school, school year. We're getting into the high school football season. We're going to have a lot of advantages now when it comes to guys like Gentry and Chris McClellan, because they have a lot more opportunity to drive down to Norman rather than fly to USC, Florida, Alabama, what have you. So Gentry's going. I think you hit it right on the spot. I suspect Gentry is going to make an announcement sooner than later. Hopefully sooner than early official signing day in December, but that wouldn't be the worst case scenario. Obviously, I think what would stress us as Sooner fans out is if he doesn't make a commitment until next summer or next spring, because at that point it's kind of, he's just waiting for a different school to give him a reason to go out of state rather than staying at Oklahoma.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see. I think Florida is still trying to recruit him. I think LSU is too, but LSU, I honestly think, and it's not a far-fetched thing to think about, that Coach O, his seat is starting to get a little lukewarm now. You think of Gene Chizik from Alabama, or not Alabama, Auburn, and he won with he won with Cam. I think it's Gene Chizik. I don't know. The coach at Auburn, he won a national championship with Cam Newton, and 2 years later he was fired. It's not unheard of for coaches in the SEC to have that happen. So not being stable at LSU might help. Florida, I think, is recruiting him more as a wide receiver. I could be wrong, but Florida looked pretty good this weekend. I don't know. I just think being close to home, OU's improvement. I just think overall they're going to win out. And I think everyone will be happy. We've got to lock him down. You know, you can't let one of the best, if not the best prospect from the state out.
And I know we were probably going to hit on this next recruit probably next, but Chris McClellan went to the University of Florida this last weekend from what we're gathering on Twitter. And it seems like him, Chris, and Gentry are very close, very good friends. So I think Gentry and Chris are going to have a lot of influence over each other. I don't think that they're going to be like a package deal like we've talked about with the wide receiver that went to OSU after decommitting from Oklahoma. But Gentry having a great experience at Oklahoma this last weekend, and him speaking to Chris, over the next few days will probably have a lot of influence over what Chris's decision will be. And obviously also what Gentry's decision will be if Chris had a great experience at the University of Florida. So those two are definitely, I think, in my opinion, at this point, are going to be the two biggest names to watch in the recruiting world, especially in state recruiting, because they're still up in the air. And even though we hope they're very big leans to Oklahoma, and from what we've seen, a lot of crystal balls are for Gentry to go to OU. And in my opinion, it would be his best situation. He'll more than likely, I believe, be a redshirt freshman by the time he starts, but being redshirted is not a bad thing. And Chris McClellan, honestly, Chris McClellan will have the best opportunity to start as a true freshman if he goes to OU. He will have Isaiah Thomas out of the defensive line. He will have Perion Winfrey out of the defensive line. I believe
Nick Bonito
out of the defensive line, maybe Isaiah Coe, but him and Isaiah Coe don't play the same position, so it wouldn't even matter. His biggest competition to be a starter next year would be Reggie Grimes or a guy like Stutzman or Ethan Downs, which he's talented, and I love Stutzman. I think Stutzman's going to be more of a Kenneth Murray kind of role, play more Mike. So McClellan will be able to be more of a pass rusher in our system.
Yeah, I think McClellan will be more of like the down lineman on the edge, going inside and out. I think him and, he'll probably play more inside, to be honest with you. I mean, he's a big guy. He's six. For anyone that doesn't know or haven't heard of him, he's 2022 4-star out of Owasso, Oklahoma, number 93 overall prospect and number 17 defensive lineman in the country. He's right now 6'3", 295. He's going to be playing more of the interior line. And, you're right. The two biggest recruits, at least in state, is Williams and McClellan. The other big guy, the other one that we're trying to lock down, or the Sooners are trying to lock down, is Gabriel Brownwell-Dindy. And Dindy will play more of the edge if he commits to the Sooners, which I think the Sooners are in a great spot over the next month. I would be watching towards the end of October after his A&M visit. It's probably going to make his decision. But McClellan, he's so athletic. He would be such a great guy to pick up. And like you said, we're losing a lot of pieces on that defensive front. He would have a great opportunity to come in and compete day one, because his top schools, you think of Oklahoma, Ohio State, Florida, and Alabama. Oklahoma's losing quite a bit. The rest of those schools, I mean, as much as I think highly of this OU defense, and it's still, it's a work in progress. I mean, it's improving, but there's going to be a lot of turnover because there's a lot of good players that are going to go to the league, and the depth is a little bit better at those other three schools. I mean, I'm not going to be biased. I mean, it just is. And I think the opportunity, McClellan now knows he can play in the SEC by the time he, at some point while he's on campus, has to be appealing to him. He can't be like, well, I can go play at Alabama or Florida and play in the SEC. Well, the Sooners can offer that too for him. Maybe not the entire time. I do think OU is going to get out a little early, so maybe so. But we just can't let him out of our state either. It seems like Ohio State, it was kind of one of those deals. It was a visit. He came off of visit high, and he was really high on the Buckeyes. And it just seems like they've kind of faded, like USC has faded for Gentry Williams. And I do think they want to play together, like you said. I don't think ultimately either one of them is going to make or break where they go, but I do think that's part of the equation. And to think about, like, I'm friends with them, and I'm friends with a group of guys from the Tulsa area. It would be cool to go play. We can go compete in the best conference in the country eventually, or and compete for national championships and conference championships and bowl championships. I mean, it's just, I would like to think that OU is going to be able to sell them on it between Coach Thibs and Jamar Kane. I mean, those two guys, they're two of the best already. I mean, Jamar Kane has really been making a name for himself recently. But and McClellan was on campus for the Western Carolina game, so he was there. He went to Florida. He's got a visit set up with Alabama on October 23rd of this year. I'm hoping the Sooners can get him on campus one more time before the season's over. I don't really know when he's going to commit. I would imagine he's going to probably, drag it out a few more months. Obviously, he's going to go visit Alabama at the end of next month. I would think maybe he makes a commitment, November, December before, or he might commit on early signing day. I don't know. But it's definitely something to watch after this visit to Florida and Alabama, and hopefully the Sooners can get him on campus one more time. But we'll see. I'm feeling a lot better about him than I did in the summertime. It sounded like the Sooners weren't a part of the equation back, 2-3 months ago. It seems like OU is now firmly in the competition and making him think what he should do, making him think twice. So we'll move on. Another guy that I don't know. I don't think we've ever talked about him. Maybe if we have, it's not been a whole lot. Cam Dewberry. For everyone that doesn't know, he's a 2022 4-star, number 108 overall, and number 10 offensive tackle in the class. Big guy, 6'4", 313 pounds, out of Humble, Texas. Around the Houston area. So, big boy football. I mean, gosh, the guy he's 17 years old, 16, 17 years old, and he's 6'4", 313. Good Lord. He has offers to all the big schools: LSU, Ohio State, Texas A&M, Texas, Oklahoma. Pretty much can go wherever he wants. And it sounds like it's coming down between Oklahoma and Texas A&M. It just seems like every big time recruit, it's OU and Texas A&M, OU and Ohio State, OU and Alabama, and and maybe even OU, USC, not so much anymore with USC, but it just seems like A&M, Alabama, Ohio State, we all compete for the same type of guy. We're all recruiting the same type. And I mean, Dewberry, it's coming down between A&M and Oklahoma. Obviously, being from the Houston area, College Station isn't that far away for him. Or, Oklahoma, Norman, what are we, 6 hours away, 7 hours away from Houston? A little bit of a drive, but his family can make trips. At least he's not going across the country. But College Station definitely has that advantage. The little bit I've watched of him, he's already a big guy. I mean, he's 313 pounds. He's probably going to grow another inch or two. He's 6'5", 6'6". I mean, he's going to be a massive tackle coming up for the Sooners, or for whoever he goes and plays with. So he's got the frame. He's really hard to beat on the outside. He's got, great footwork, lateral quickness. He's tough to beat. Obviously he's got things to improve on, but I mean, for the frame, I feel like Coach B could really mold him into whatever the Sooners need and that tackle position, whether it's left or right. What do you think about him, Jose?
So after watching his tape, he mainly plays right tackle, which obviously is not, the money tackle, but he's very good at playing on the right side. He is also very athletic for an offensive lineman. This dude will get to the second level. He'll make the block when needed. And for Oklahoma's running game, the offensive line does a lot of movement, getting the left or right side to move over to make the proper blocks. This guy is a guy that would fit Oklahoma's running scheme, at least. And from his high school tape, he looks like he's very good at playing the pass protection. So honestly, he would be an ideal fit for Oklahoma's scheme and Oklahoma's game overall. I think if he comes to Oklahoma, really it would just be, can you compete at the position that you want to play in? Kind of like Andrew Rame. Rame out of high school, if it wasn't for Creed Humphrey, he probably would have had an opportunity to start as a true freshman. I think Dewberry is going to have a very similar situation. If he doesn't have someone in his way at the right tackle position, then he's going to have an opportunity to compete at the right tackle position.
Which he won't have anyone in his way. Think about who's there right now is Robinson, Tyrese Robinson. He's a senior, especially with how he's been playing pretty well. If he continues to put together great film, I mean, obviously he's a senior, he's going to go, but he's going to be in the league. That position is going to be open between him and, if he does commit, him and Wanya Morris. That's the first guy I think of that would be competing. Obviously, Anton Harrison's already on the left side. I'm trying to think right tackle. I mean, there's a handful of tackles, young tackles on the depth chart, but it's going to be an audition for that position. So he's got to know he's going to have the opportunity to compete as a true freshman, which has to be a great selling point. So I would definitely we need to keep our eyes on him over the next couple months and with A&M, and maybe if A&M drops a few games, OU keeps winning, keeps blocking. I don't know, maybe OU can win him over. It's just going to be tough with the advantage of the geographic. But the one thing I will say about him, for 6'4", 313, sometimes guys get so big and so heavy that they become a little like clumsy, per se, like they look too heavy. They're just not athletic. Right. And you said he's athletic. That 313, he carries it really well.
He does.
You wouldn't think he's, he's big, but it fits him that way. He's just got that.
Especially at such young of an age, being that big, tall, and large, like you suspect him to be a little clumsy, not be so agile on his feet. But this dude moves around, like I said, just like you would suspect a tackle at the University of Oklahoma to move around. He's making that transition to come in the running game, at least. If he is asked to come from the outside to come block on the inside as a guard, or not as a guard, but after the snap to pull, come in, make that tackle to make a hole for his running back, he can do that. And if it's an outside where he needs to help his running back beat the edge, he will make that play as well. He will get to the second level. He will destroy the corners that he has to come up against if there's ever a corner blitz. He's got the ability to do it. So, I mean, at this point, I think really it will depend on, obviously we already have Sexton on board as an offensive lineman. And we have one other offensive lineman that his name is, I can't remember his name, but
Demetrius Hunter, I know, is committed, but he's a center.
We have Pancake on. There's one other guy, Jake Taylor. We have three guys on board right now. I think he would kind of form the perfect offensive line recruiting class. I don't think we need a full 5-man group to come in. Obviously, we'll have some people come in, lower rated guys probably come in at the offensive line position, because those guys aren't rated as high as they should be, in my opinion, because they're just not as appreciated as they should be. But this guy could be a big asset for Oklahoma if they can land him.
Yeah, no, I hoping so, but it's definitely something we'll be keeping our eyes on and keeping you guys updated on. But last guy we'll talk about, and it's just real quick. Raleek Brown came on his official visit. Obviously, he's been committed to the Sooners now for quite a while. People were a little nervous with him. Maybe could he flip? It's like PTSD with the running backs. Losing the last few guys in the past few years. He seemed like he really enjoyed his visit. His girlfriend came with. From what we could see, sounded like the visit went really well. He's going to fit in well with the Sooners. And I think more than anything, this solidifies everything. Clay Helton getting fired at USC might help a little bit as well. Just dysfunction helps the Sooners. And I hope for the Sooners' sake that USC really never gets it together so that Southern California recruiting can just keep going up as it is. So you have any comments on him? I mean, obviously I'm excited for him to get on campus, but I don't think there's a whole lot to say.
Yeah, I mean, the dude's a playmaker. Between him and Sawchuk, I honestly think he'll probably be playing the running back position more than we expect to, just because our running back depth has really died over this offseason. So I'm excited. Hopefully nothing happens over the next few months where it just makes him really forces his hand to flip. But Raleek is going to be a weapon once he gets on the field. I believe he could actually him and Sawchuk would be competing for 1A, 1B positions. I don't know if Eric Gray would be eligible for another year after this.
He will be. I think last year, is he a redshirt sophomore? I could be wrong. I don't think Gray will be going to the NFL. I think Brooks will. But I do think you're right. I think they're going to come in and compete and probably play. I bet OU will pick up another running back in the transfer portal. I wouldn't be surprised unless they land Javonte Barnes. Yep. I know he's still out there. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Sooners land him as well. Just don't know when. I take that back. I think I saw he's going to commit I think he's playing in the Under Armour game or something, or the All-American game or whatever, one of them. I think he's going to sign early and announce his commitment then. So we'll know by that point, but hopefully Brown, Sawchuk, and Javonte Barnes, that'll be quite the trio with joining Gray next year. Definitely the running back depth is needed right now. I mean, we look good now, but it'll be nice to have 3 talented guys in there. So, but anyway, do you have any final thoughts? I don't think we have anything more to cover, at least in this episode. No.
I think the biggest thing at this point is just keeping an eye on the in-state guys. Those guys are really the biggest movers at this point, or biggest question marks. So hopefully Gentry's visit this last weekend was kind of a solidifier rather than a convincing proposition.
Yeah. Him and Brownlow Dindy, hopefully he pulls the trigger soon too. But we really appreciate it if you made it this far. Let us know what you think about all these recruits we talked about, anything USC related, anything. Let us know what you think. We'll be sure to comment back, and we really appreciate all the support. Follow us on our Twitter and Instagram at 2 Plane Sports, keeping you most up to date as we can, between these videos and social media. So we really appreciate it, and we will catch you next time.